I've spent the last year modifying and upgrading the electrical system in my 2023 Ibex 20 BHS. And in today's video, I'm showing you every electrical upgrade I've made and what plans I have for the future. So we're standing inside my 25-foot camper trailer from tongue to the bumper, and the actual living quarters is a little bit smaller at 21.5 feet. So as you can tell, we're not working with a large fifth wheeler trailer here. I had to be very strategic on where I put this massive electrical system in. Now, I always knew that this was gonna be the model and the floor layout that I was gonna upgrade to from our pop-up camper for three main reasons. So for the first reason, this is the smallest camper I could find that had bunk beds but did not have a Murphy bed. And the second reason is this model had the beast mode independent suspension option. I knew I wanted to take this thing off-roading. I just wanted a little bit of independent suspension and I wanted a higher clearance. Finally, the last and probably main reason why I chose this camper was because of all the storage underneath the queen mattress. That is where I planned on putting all of my batteries and most of my components. So I'm gonna break this video up into 5 sections. Number 1, why I chose LiTime lithium batteries for my battery of choice. And I'm also gonna share how they've been performing over the last year of using them. Number 2, I wanna talk about why I chose the components that I installed. And I also wanna share how the camper is wired. And number 3, I want to walk you around the camper and show you all the electrical things that I've added to the camper that didn't originally come with it. And number 4, we're going to talk about how the solar is wired on this camper. And finally, number 5, we're going to discuss my future upgrades. And I also want to discuss sizing a solar system to the correct battery capacity and solar to match your needs. So the reasons why I chose LiTime for my battery of choice was cost, warranty, and performance. So LiTime uses EV grade cells that are lithium iron phosphate cells. That's going to give us 4,000 plus cycles at 100% depth of discharge, which is awesome. And you can't forget that they have a 5-year warranty. Now, LiTime did partner with me on this video, and they offered my audience, you guys, a 10% discount code for both their website and Amazon. I'll have the links down below for 10% off. Now, another thing that went into consideration for my build out of this electrical system was these particular batteries right here. They have the largest amp hour capacity that I could find that was the smallest footprint that I could put underneath my bed. I had to rebuild the underbed storage. Now, I wouldn't be able to sit on this from the manufacturer. It would probably break, but this thing is overbuilt, over-engineered. There's not a screw holding it together. It's all tongue and groove, loose mortise and tenons. It is solid. It ain't going anywhere. It's probably shaking the whole camper. The camera's probably shaking. Now, what's funny is this was a ton of work. It's probably 2 or 3 weekends. Well worth it because I needed it to hold all my components. I only ended up building it about 3/4 of an inch wider on both sides and probably 1.5 inches on the depth. I also rebuilt this back wall holding all the Victron components. And on the other side of that is my 50, 60 pound inverter mounted on that wall. There is absolutely no way I would have been able to mount that on the original bones or structure that was held together with like literally staples. I'm not kidding, staples. And I'm talking, we are to the end on each side, and it worked out perfect to house my battery bank. The other thing that I kind of incorporated, I always kind of dreamed of having storage under here still and not losing all of this storage, is I just got done installing 2 drawers, and this one right here actually has a built-in battery charging station. The last thing that went in consideration was the BMS, and that stands for Battery Management System. You're gonna wanna choose a lithium battery that has a good BMS. That BMS protects the lithium iron phosphate cells from going poof. Okay, so that's an exaggeration, but literally that's what it's doing. I knew I wanted to run larger loads off the batteries, AC, microwave. And I'm able to do that because these batteries have a 200 amp BMS in each one of my batteries. I've got 4 of them. And again, guys, my in-laws have 2 24-volt lithium batteries from LiTime. My parents have 3 of the 12-volt versions, and now I have 4. I haven't had any problems between the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 batteries that we have within my family alone. So that's why I recommend LiTime for your battery of choice in your camper. You can't beat the price, performance, and the warranty. So let's transition over to the components and why I chose Victron. You see all the blue right there. I've got 7 years of history using Victron. I used a 2,000 watt inverter, some charge controllers, and their shunt in my 2019 pop-up that I overhauled. And probably the biggest benefit and reason why you should use Victron, in my opinion, is the communication. Every component communicates with one another through this Servo GX, which is the computer, and that gets transmitted over to a Touch 50 or Touch 70 screen. You can also use your phone or a tablet now. It's an amazing system. So on this side of the camper, underneath the bed, I've got the batteries being wired through 2-watt wire going into the Lynx power in. You'll also see that I have 4 individual cutoff switches for my batteries. Each battery has its own cables going from the battery that are fused going into the power in. From the power in, it's basically just a big bus bar that goes through my Lynx shunt. The Lynx shunt is basically a measuring device of power in, power out, and giving you an accurate percentage of where your battery capacity is. To the right of the shunt is a Lynx distributor that houses all my fuses for all my devices. From there, I have it going to an Orion 12 volt to 24 or 24 to 12, and that converts my house bank, which is 24, down to 12 volt because the camper DC power side of the camper is 12 volt, and that's how I step it down. I also have a battery protect on my system. What this does is when my batteries get low, it just shuts the system off. It won't damage the batteries. Now, all these components are hooked up to the Servo GX, which is the computer, the brains underneath the bed as well. You can see all the data that is plugged into that. That data then transmitted to the Touch 70 screen that I have mounted up in the kitchen, and that tells me everything that's going on in the system. So I also installed the Victron multi-control. This is a very expensive, overly priced switch. Basically, it's an inverter switch. It also tells you what your charging modes are in, what your inverter is, and then you have a current limit right here, which you can load that down to 20, 10, 30, whatever amperage you want to bring in from shore power. I like it. I had it in my pop-up camper and I brought it over to this one as well. So I chose to install the Touch 70. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say spend the extra 60 bucks and get the Touch 70 versus the Touch 50. The larger screen is nice. There's a lot of data on here. You do not have to have this to run all the Victron equipment that I have. This is just a luxury item. Now, I didn't have another place to mount this, and so I spent a ton of time figuring out a way to run the HDMI cable from the cabinet down behind the 12-volt refrigerator underneath the chassis up to the storage bay underneath the bed and plugged into the Servo GX. I'm glad I did it. It was a pain, I'm not gonna lie. This is just an overview. So real quick, you got shore power, 1250 watts coming in. You've got it in float charging because my batteries are at 100%. The AC is currently drawing about 1150 watts. My solar is 0 because my batteries are at 100%, and the lights in the camper are running about 70 watts. Now, one thing that's pretty cool is Victron is always updating their software. Matter of fact, this is the newest and greatest software Victron released. And I currently have a Mopica propane sensors on both of my propanes. They're both at 100% right now. I don't have them yet, but I went ahead and loaded it into the Touch 70, and that is a fresh and gray tank. So I'll be able to read how much percentage of water I have in the gray and fresh versus relying on the ones from the manufacturer, which is pretty cool. The other thing I did was I added a bunch of Ruby tag temperature sensors. So I got one for the batteries underneath the bed. I've got one in the fridge, in the freezer. Inside the Ibex right now, it's 81 degrees. That's because I just turned on the AC unit. Outside, it's currently 100 degrees outside. That's probably skewed because it's mounted on the frame and the frame's probably pretty hot. Now, this is the one that I watch the most, and that is the storage pass-through area. That specifically is tied next to the inverter. Now, I have seen that temperature get up to 120, 125 degrees, and that is when I am charging my battery banks and I'm running the AC off the inverter slash batteries. That thing is producing a ton of heat trying to charge the batteries and trying to run and pass through power from the generator to the AC unit. The Touch 70 is a luxury item. You do not have to have it, but I think it's pretty cool to have this display in your camper. I would argue the hardest thing about installing a whole house system with an inverter and batteries is tapping into the shore power. It's extremely intimidating and hard to do, but I found a product sold by exploreslife.com that's just a simple splice box that enables you to tap into the shore power. All you gotta do is go behind your distribution panel, cut that wire, run a new wire from your distribution panel to your inverter, wherever that is. We ran ours early on building out our electrical system, and then you're gonna take that new wire with the old wire and splice that in. And after you've done that, your new run is gonna be like this. From shore power outside the camper, it's gonna run to the inverter. From the inverter, it's gonna run back to the distribution panel. And that's where the term whole house inverter comes from, because your batteries are able to power the inverter that powers the distribution panel that powers the whole house. Now, I was lucky in this particular model. My shore power plug is underneath my bunk bed behind a faux wall, and I was able to unscrew that faux wall and access my shore power. I also went ahead and installed a Watchdog inline surge protector. I highly encourage you, if you're putting in lithium batteries, inverter, all that stuff, invest into a surge protector. It is very known that RV parks and state parks have dirty power. This is an awkward position. So as you can see, this is where I mounted my Multi-Plus 2, which is a 24 volt, 3000 watt and 70 amp charger. You can see the two white wires coming up here. Those are coming from the distribution panel that we just talked about. You also have got two solar charge control grounds coming in. And down here at the bottom, we have the 2-watt wires coming in from the Lynx distributor. Up here on the top right-hand corner is the charge controllers for my solar. I've got one for the roof and one for the ground deployment. They're 150 each. They're both MPPT charge controllers. I've got the data cables on all three components going back to the Servo GX as well. Over here on the charge controllers, I got two void spots. Those are for future components from Victron. I'll talk about those later in this video. There is about a 2 or 3 inch void between this wall and the wall behind the batteries underneath the bed. That's where all the wires are going in. So I've got a nice good void in there. As you can see, this is on 1/2 inch solid wall. Again, from this side all the way over there, this is all rebuilt by myself. Tongue and groove, it's solid. This thing is not going anywhere. And I did that because I didn't want to have any issues. So the next thing I want to do is I want to show and talk to you about all the things that I've added to my electrical system that did not come with this camper. So when building out the wall to support all the Victron equipment, I came up with this idea to have a power station wall. I knew I wanted a 12 volt auxiliary sub panel, and that's exactly where I put it. I installed it right here on this wall. These are all the things, I think there's like 10 things that I've added that did not come with the camper that is on 12 volt system. I also put a hook system up here to hook headlamps, my speaker, walkie-talkie. Down here at the bottom, I installed a power charging station. I've got 2 USB-Cs, 2 USB-As, a cigarette 12 volt, and I can turn that off and on if I want. It's also hooked up to the motion sensor lights on both sides. To the right of that is a 3-way light pass-through for the storage on a 3-way, so there's a switch on both sides. To the right of that, I've got a light it's a 3-way switch for our underbelly light that are amber. At night, we like to turn off all the white lights and we turn on our underbelly lights. Below that, this is something that I came up with, which is pretty cool. This is a GFCI outlet that used to be on the other side of this wall inside the camper. And I was like, man, I'm never gonna use that. So what I did is I took that and I reversed it and put it on this side of the pass-through storage. To the right of that is a 150 amp 12 volt disconnect. This powers all of my 12 volt in the whole camper. If I do that, nothing works. That is something that I wired when I had to tap into the 12 volt power that came with the camper. Plus I needed to tap into this. Now, as far as the board that it's on, this is a board that came with the camper that was inside the pass-through storage, and I've veneered that to 3/8 inch plywood using a vacuum seal gluing process. All three of these panels, the acrylic that shows any leaks with my water pump, the carpet panel that's holding the multi-plus inverter, and this panel are all held together with threaded inserts. So technically I could take all three of these panels off very easily to access anything that I need to in troubleshooting, or if I wanted to add something, it's very easy. So something that I added on the outside of the camper just below the storage bay is a 12-volt auxiliary port. This is an Anderson connection, and this just gives me the ability when the camper is all closed up that I've got 12-volt power on the outside of the camper. I use it for my Dometic CFX refrigerator. I've used it to watch TV by plugging in a 12-volt TV, and I even use it at the RC track to power my cars. So I originally bought the Starlink Mini, so I wired in a 12-volt port on the outside of the camper to make it easy to plug in. I wired that through a step-up converter, taking it from 12 volt to 48 volt. This gives you the ability to run a longer wire. It really has a voltage drop when you run a long wire. So this is my originally set up. Recently, I switched over to the Gen 3, and now I have the Gen 3 hardwired to my camper. So I also added another motion sensor light back here underneath the bunk beds. And before I had this, it was extremely hard to find things at night. And I've got that thing just hooked up to some LED light strips. At night, it makes it easy to see what I need to grab out of any kind of boxes or anything. And all I did to get power to the drawer is tap into this existing outlet in the camper and ran the wire behind the wall and had it pop out right there behind the drawer, and that's what I'm plugging into. If you've been following me for a while, you know I love a 12-volt refrigerators. I literally haven't bought ice in about 10 years, it seems like. So we have that stored there while we're driving down the road. And then when we get to camp, we usually pull it out and plug it into that auxiliary Anderson connection outside, keeping us from going in and out to get food or drinks, which is pretty nice. I also installed on both sides a USB and USB-C port. I took out the ones that came with the camper because they weren't very good and they weren't USB-C. Here's actually an example of one. They have these green lights that are always on and you can never turn them off. And there was two of them right next to our heads while we were sleeping. And my wife asked me to pull those out because it was a nuisance sleeping at night when neither one of us could sleep because the lights were like blaring in your eyes. So I pulled those out and I replaced the hole with another light. This is a dimmable blue light, which is pretty cool. And more than anything, it just covered up the hole from taking out the 12-volt powering station. Now, this is something that I added in my parents' camper, and I took it from theirs over to mine, and that is a little on-off switch with an LED light strip. So when I open up the storage bay, I have instant light underneath the storage. If I'm troubleshooting something, checking a fuse, I don't have to go find a flashlight. I instantly have light, and it was an easy mod to do. I also installed some LED strips on the bunk beds. Each one of the kids has one, which is pretty cool. You can change the colors, and they love them. While I was installing that, I had to tap in 12-volt power, so I went ahead and upgraded them as well with USB-C and USB. And then I took out their charging port as well because it was a green light, but I went ahead and replaced their light as well. This has the dimming blue light, or it's also just white. And probably the most recent upgrade with the electrical system has been the hardwired 12-volt fans. I sleep with a fan at my house. I like to hear a little bit of noise. I like to feel the breeze, and you never got that with a camper. My wife and I just installed 3 12-volt hardwired fans, and they work out really well. They've got timers, and they put off a lot of air, as you can hear probably, and I can feel. I love those. They're pretty cool. You can adjust them however you want, and we do a lot of camping where the AC is not running, and just to move the air at night, even with the heater, is going to be nice. Each one of the kids also got a fan. This one can be doubled and turned around, but at night the kids use it as well to move some air, both heat and cool air, back into those bunks because those bunks get cold or hot. Now you might be wondering, hey Lance, how did you get power to these 12-volt hardwired fans? And I just sourced local power. So behind the TV is a 12-volt socket for the 12-volt TV. Used the help of my wife. She was tremendous in in this project, her little hands and fingers were able to get the wires to this one, so that was pretty easy. Now when it came to my son's bunk, this was very difficult. This took probably 2 hours for us to get wire to it, and we tapped into the 12-volt fan in the bathroom, and I bought a little $20 camera off Amazon. Now regarding the fan on the bottom bunk, we just tapped into the carbon monoxide sensor and ran the wire up the wall and grabbed it from the other side, and this one was honestly fairly easy. So probably our biggest gripe on this model camper and floor layout is the horizontal surface for cooking and prepping, and there is literally no drawers anywhere in the kitchen. And so my wife asked me to install an outlet and to build a drawer eventually that will be able to plug in her coffee maker while we're at camp. So she will literally just pull out the drawer, make her coffee, put it back in, and that will store her coffee maker underway while we're at camp, which is pretty nice. And all I did was tap into this electrical outlet right here, run the wire behind the refrigerator, which was pretty easy install. Gotta check my phone. Literally been working on this camper non-stop for 12 months. Done a lot of electrical stuff, and we've also done a lot of just other mods, and they're kind of running all together. So I almost forgot about one. I just recently got the new Furrion Chill Cube installed. I dropped off the camper at a local RV dealer and had them install it. I paid full price for it. This thing is a true game changer. I know you hear that in YouTube videos in the industry with new products coming out, but this thing is so efficient, so quiet, so cold. We've taken it now on 3 or 4 trips. I already see a huge benefit and efficiency compared to your traditional RV AC units. So the AC is running right now, and listen how quiet that is compared to a traditional RV air conditioning. I could not be filming this video with my old Furrion unit. There's absolutely no way it'd be blowing. You couldn't hear me. Now next weekend, I'm taking the camper boondocking here in the state of Texas for 3 days, 2 nights in 90 degree, 93, 95 degree heat during the day. And we're gonna test how long we can run these lithium iron phosphate batteries from LiTime off the AC. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna bet we can make it through the weekend, which is 3 days, especially what we're gonna talk about next, which is the amount of solar on the roof and the amount of solar I have on the ground. So on the roof, I've got 1,000 watts of rich 24 volt Mega Pro solar panels. I've got them wired in series parallel. 2 of the panels are wired in series. The other 2 panels are wired in series. Those 4 panels are wired in parallel. And so what that does, that helps out with shading. If 2 of the panels have a bunch of shading but the other 2 don't, it's more efficient. The Mega Pros have a new technology within the panel that prevent efficiency loss from shading, which is pretty nice to have. Also, the footprint of the 250 watt panels, 4 of them fit perfectly between my AC unit and all the vents on my roof. Now, one thing that I had to do and figure out is this camper came with a charge controller, I think from Go Power, that was mounted in the bathroom in this specific location. However, I didn't want the charge controller here. That means I have cut wires that are right here that went in the back of the charge controller. I also wanted to add a DC disconnect. And so I found this panel, and that is where I installed my solar disconnect. So that is how I solved the problem of the original manufacturer charge controller and figuring out a way to incorporate a shutoff for the solar panels on the roof. The last year, I've been using EBL portable solar panels. I've been using anywhere from 400 to 600 watts. Now, I am right in the middle of transitioning over to Zoop Power. They sent me a solar panel that I test out last time I went up to the RC track. They worked out really well. They worked out so well that I actually bought the second one with my own money. Now, full transparency on that, they sent me a solar panel for me to try out. Make sure you subscribe, because in my next video, as we test out the AC unit, I'm gonna be doing a kind of a review on those Zoop Power 350 watt solar panels. So overall, I have 1,700 watts available of solar coming into this camper, charging my LiTime batteries, which I think is a sweet spot for this camper and the size of my electrical system. Now, on average, I see see anywhere from 800 to 1200 watts actually coming in of that available 1700. You're never gonna see exactly what's marketed. If it's a 500 watt panel, you're never gonna get 500 watts unless it's summer and perfect sun, blah, blah, blah. I've never seen it. One thing that I did do on my portable ground deployments with my charge controller, I've got a port in the back to plug in solar panels into, and I've got a port in the front that I can plug the solar panels in. And that just gives me different configurations based on where I'm camping. I've also got 3 different links solar wire, so I can run a short one to be more efficient, or if I have to run it out 60 feet for the ground deployments, I will do that. That's the setup I have for my solar. Now, this is a perfect segue to transition to the discussion and topic about sizing a battery bank to your needs. I'm a big fan of buying lithium first. Do not buy AGM, do not buy lead acid. Lithium batteries have come down drastically in cost. LiTime batteries, links down below. I'm telling you, better bang for your buck than AGM. You should never buy them, in my opinion. Get as much battery bank capacity as your budget allows. The next thing I would do is I would get a ground portable solar unit. Do not get solar on the roof yet. The third thing that I would do is I would get a DC to DC charger. Remember those void spots out in my storage bay? I'm about to install 2 Victron Orion 1400 XS unit. That is going to give me a constant 600 watts per unit, regardless of rain, sun, or it's dark at night when I'm driving the camper. I'm going to get that power. If I have solar on the roof, the sun's got to be out. So that's the third thing that I would do. And finally, after that, I would finally invest into solar on the roof. I'm not going to lie, having solar on the roof, always charging, whether you're driving, whether you're not driving, it is a luxury. That's the order I would do. Battery first, make sure it's a lithium. Then I would do a portable solar unit, then I would do a DC to DC, and then I would finally invest into solar on the roof. If you haven't already, guys, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I'm testing out the Furion Chill Cube with the LiTime batteries and the new solar. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one.